And as Devin said, I would expect, and I agree with him, I would expect 20 feet of storm surge easily in some places, from Port Fortune to mouth of the Mississippi. Easily, I could see 20 feet of storm surge occurring. That's just conservative. But them upping it to 12 to 16 definitely is the right call.
So the Port Mansfield Empire extreme southeast Louisiana Peninsula is expecting that much storm surge?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Tropical Depression 11's advisory is out. It's 35 miles an hour and 109 millibars. Depression accelerating northeastward. Expected to become a tropical storm later today. And that's your look around. That's all for the advisories. So that's your look around the wide world of tropics.
Indeed.
We'll get a full idea of what Ida strength and pressure is once recon tells us. And it looks like NOAA 3 is starting to fly in. Alrighty, they're finding hurricane force barbs. What looks to be, I don't know if that is outside of the eye wall or not. Let me throw this into live output. But they will be making a southeast to northwest pass.
Well, we'll see what they find with this recon pass, of course.
Xavier, what are your thoughts? From what we have they're probably in the eye wall right now, but from the information we have right now, I don't even think those hurricane barbs are in the eye wall.
They're not.
I really don't like what I'm seeing on satellite right now. The mesoscale floater, where pretty much it seems as though the highest levels of convection are wrapping around the eastern side of the eye wall. And I feel as though if that persists, that's just very indicative of further intensification as the storm gets ever so closer to shore.
Well, since recon's going in there, I will just read this ADT. One final thing. They're holding at 127 knots. They're holding at 6.5 T number, and the CI number, although their adjusted T and raw T is 6.7. The pressure, however, has calmed down from 934.2 to 934.1. Once again, as we said multiple times, take the Dvorak with a grain of salt. it's pretty much a Hail Mary / last ditch resort if we can't get any of the available things like Recon or ASCAT or any other kind of stuff to show us how strong these storms could be. But that's just an ADT update for those of you that are fans of the Dvorak. And we are all here sitting with you as we wait for the recon numbers to come on in.
Indeed.
Just to recap, since we are 5 minutes past the top of the hour here, it is currently 5:06 here on the East Coast, 4:06 local time for where Ida will be affecting the host of the stream for right now until we have a switch over occur is Xavier Burns. Although it's late for both Xavier and myself. So Xavier is a bit talking less. I'm still in a bit talking mood because I'm not tired yet, surprisingly. My name is Jonesy. And what you're seeing here is a situation getting very worse very quickly. Joining us in this hour is our team comprised of Joey, Z, Gabriel, Noah, and Orlando. I'm going to start with you, Noah, because I know you're the one looking over at Recon. I am as well, but I'm also working on these graphics. What do we have currently from Recon?
So they're going for a pass that's southeast to northwest, and they're currently already finding hurricane force flight level winds, flight level up to about 70 knots. And they're still pretty far away from the center, as you can tell. The extrapolated pressure from the hurricane force flight level winds is still around 1005 millibars. So it still takes some time until we get the center pass. That will be pretty exciting to see how strong it actually is.
Well, it's both exciting and scary. And I said it at the top of the previous hour at 4 p.m. You just have to feel for anyone that's staying behind. My stomach is in knots, and you just have to hope and pray for those people. Orlando, I know you were talking about in the last hour how you woke up to a Cat 4, and pretty much you were sharing the same thoughts that most of us had when this was named Cat 4. What are your current thoughts on the system?
Unfortunately, my thoughts haven't necessarily changed all too much based on the simple fact that it's continuing to perform very well, taking full advantage of its current environment and continuing to intensify and organize further. I am very concerned of what the reconnaissance flight will find pressure-wise, as well as wind speed-wise, because this storm continues to basically organize and intensify at a very alarming rate as it approaches the Louisiana shoreline. I am not very sure if the eastern wobble has continued, but the more that does happen, the more likely that you will have the New Orleans metro area be more directly under fire from this system. And it's also very unfortunate that there is a lot of people around the area that have not been fortunate enough to evacuate. Either if it was because of advice from leadership or just short timing overall. It's very unfortunate, and honestly, I am very concerned what reconnaissance is going to find within the next 6 hours as the storm continues to barrel towards the shoreline and it continues to grow and it continues to intensify and continues to perform remarkably well.
Absolutely. As for wobbles, we really haven't seen much shift in the cone. We generally have an area where we know it's gonna come onto land. Speaking of the cone, I know Z currently. Oh, he had it up for a second, but I'm not sure if you're able to bring that back up, Z.
I got it.
Okay, so that. So right now, as you see, we have a satellite image. Does look like the eye is getting a bit bigger, opening up a little more. Let's see if we can bring it to Z screen. If that would be very nice, but from what I am seeing, it looks like it's still showing landfall, still expected in the same spot as it has been. Western parts of New Orleans is in the cone. I know Xavier has been tracking how long it is until land, and we're guessing it's probably about 7 to 8 hours from now from landfall. Supposedly a drop sonde is coming on the recon, but that's just the entering drop sonde. They usually do that just to make sure that it's working and all that. So that drop sonde really isn't gonna tell us much at all.
Also, is there someone who can show radarscope? Would be pretty interesting to point some things out there.
I got WIAWIPS. That's the closest thing I got.
Storm. That would be pretty helpful.
Look at that velocity, though.
I want to point something out on reflectivity. Reflectivity.
Alright, Z, can you bring? Oh, yeah, can you bring the cone up for us? Or sorry, you're bringing up radar. Okay, perfect.
So yeah, when you loop the radar, you can see that the reflectivity in the eye wall is increasing, and also the thickness of the eye wall is increasing, and you can see those really bright spots in the eye wall with really high reflectivity, sometimes up to 50 dBz. Those are vertical hot towers that are still rotating around the eye, and also that the eye is becoming more circular. By the time, if you loop that, you can see reflectivity in the eye wall increasing, and also trying to wrap around that weaker western side with those vertical hot towers. Also, one thing to point out is that we had a little bit of a moat between the eye wall and the banding. This now seems to be gone, or really not that apparent anymore, which means that some of the outer bands, which are not concentric eye walls, but some of the outer bands are likely merging with the eye wall, which is a sign of strengthening. It's not a merger eye wall replacement cycle per se, but it means that some of the bands are interacting with the eye wall in a favorable way. That the storm is strengthening, and from all the radar trends, it appears that the storm is continuing to strengthen, especially as we have vertical hot towers going up directly in the eye wall and trying to rotate around.
Alrighty. Well, we definitely have seen the hurricane barbs away from the eye wall. Noah 3, as I said, as we were waiting for the update, they are in the eye wall now, probably reaching the eye as we speak. But it looks like we have up to... Okay, so it looks like they were just reaching the edge of the eye wall. It looks like in the current update on Recon on the southeast side, where we have 82 flight level and 60 SFMRs. And that looks to be on the edge. So on the next Recon update, we'll have a idea of what we have extrapolated pressure-wise in the eye and around the eye wall, and we'll have a general idea of what we're seeing in the eye wall on the next Recon update.
And also, that current recon with the 82 knot flight level, that's still a bit away from the actual strongest winds of the storm. So I think by the next
that's on the edge of the eye
update,
wall,
we're gonna
I'm
have
pretty
the center
sure.
and the eye wall.
Yeah, so that one's on the edge of the eye wall, I'm pretty sure. But
Nah,
yeah,
it's still a bit more towards the eye wall. The eye wall is really thin part of the storm. And also, when you look on satellite IR imagery, you can see the increase in organization. The eye still hasn't cleared out completely, but you can trace out the shape of the eye if you just take this one a bit more cleared out circular region and trace it again. Trace it. You can see how large the eye actually is, and also the CDO, the central dense overcast around it, looks much more uniform and organized than it did before. All of those things are sure signs of strengthening. And the NHC already went up to 140 miles an hour with their last update, which they did without recon, which means that they are probably relatively confident in the storm strengthening from all indications.
yep, absolutely.
I just wanted to mention two things, if I may.
Go ahead.
So with Louisiana, especially the southern coast, having a lot of bay areas, and there's a lot of entrances to the Gulf. Storm surge is probably going to be one of the bigger issues, as I'm sure has been established before, especially on the area where it gets the northwestern eye wall tugging the waters down, and then as the eye emerges, as that southeastern eye wall comes back over, it's just going to push a whole bunch of water inland really quickly. And it's just, I can already see this situation happening. It's going to be a really bad area if you live anywhere near that landfall point where what's that area called? It's called Terrebonne County, Louisiana, and the counties to the east and west of it. It's just gonna be really, really bad flooding as Ida just pushes all that water inland, and this is probably where most of the damage is gonna occur from all that water. But aside from that, As we just established, CDO is starting to become more uniform. The eye is becoming more circular. It looks like at this point that the eye is either has or is about to fully establish itself, and that those cloud tops that are making the eye temperature suffer should clear away in the next coming hours, and that could spell trouble for how strong this storm could get. It's really just a matter of time of how strong will this storm get in the next 6 to 8 hours as it approaches the coast of Louisiana now.
Absolutely.
Fun fact: Houma, Louisiana, is a population center for this area of Louisiana, so it may or may not impact.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we have news from Recon.
Okay, what do
They
we
went
have?
into the center and found an extrapolated pressure of 950 millibars so far, but they haven't gone really deep into the center, and it appears to me that we have some flight level bars above 113 knots so far. Let's see if I can get some more accurate information on that, Recon.
Yeah, someone someone posted that in the public server. I'm gonna wait for it to update on tidbits.
Yeah, Cyclonic WX is usually a tiny bit faster when it comes to updating those recon passes, but now Tropical Tidbits also has it.
Yeah,
So that's
usually, the three are cyclonic weather, tropical Atlantic, and tropical tidbits.
so yeah, flight level wind. Up to
Ooh, yeah, I do see
100.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. Give me a second. Okay, so flight level winds we have at the peak being 116 with an SFMR of 104 on that. The next one down was 114 knot flight level with an SFMR of 105. So that so that gives you an idea of what we're seeing in the southeast quadrant. Now, for those wondering, 105 knots, 2 miles per hour is 120. So this is definitely a major that we found evidence. We're just going to wait on that eye drop sound, obviously. But the southeast quadrant is giving us Category 3 winds currently at this time.
And I also want to point out the southeastern quadrant isn't the strongest usually.
Nope, it's
So
not.
we're gonna wait what they're gonna find in the northeastern quadrant, which they're
Yep.
likely going into right now.
And that is where they found the Cat 4 winds last time. Or, well, the Air Force found it, but, hurricane hunters in general. That's what I mean.
Out of curiosity, what did the hurricane hunters find in the southwestern quadrant in the last pass?
Funny enough, they didn't even get to the southwest quadrant because they went through the northeast quadrant. I think they were as surprised as we all were. Or southeastern is he said southwest.
Yeah.
So
Oh God. It's they didn't find. So it appears on the last pass that they didn't find in the southeastern quadrant winds flight level winds above 110. So that would mean that the storm certainly strengthened as they found flight level winds of 116 knots just now in the southeastern quadrant.
yeah, and it looks like they found only in the Cat 2 barbs last time around. So what we do know is, as for Southwestern, they didn't even get to the Southwest Quadrant last time because I think they were as surprised as we were when they found Cat 4 winds in the Northeast Quadrant, and I think they missed the center of the eye, so they did a little loop to then get that drop zone, and then they went out through the Northwest Quadrant, which they actually found stronger winds there than when they did the Northwest to Southeast pass, and that was the Air Force 303 that did that last recon. So definitely, as we know from this recon, Southeast looks stronger and actually looks to be in the direction of the plane. They're going southeast to northeast, actually. That's a bit interesting, but it can be done.
I think they want to. I think the NHC just wants to have the maximum winds for now, which they think is going to be in the northeastern quadrant, which is pretty likely. So they just want the plane to just sample the strongest winds for now. And it would be pretty interesting to see in about a few minutes, what the plane is gonna find up there. So far, radar estimates have already supported up to 140 miles per hour, which is probably one of the reasons NHC upgraded it to 140 in their last advisory.
Well, here we are, we're getting closer to that landfall now.
With strengthening major hurricane.
Yep. Ida is strengthening as it has been. Really looks like that eye is getting bigger on satellite, which honestly I don't know if that's a good or bad thing for it. But we are still a little bit away from visible. We're still a couple hours away from that. And I think it'll be interesting to see what the visible satellites are going to be looking like once the sun is indeed up over the horizon. If anybody in the chat has questions on Major Hurricane Ida, make sure you tag us with the @Force13 and we'll try to answer your questions best for you. First question that I see is, did the track nudge northward towards New Orleans? The track is kind of staying steady. There's not really major east and westward jogs of it. The western part of New Orleans is in the cone. That's not to say New Orleans is not going to see, the surge and the high risk of excessive rainfall, and you're definitely going to get hurricane force winds. So just because downtown New Orleans is outside the cone, that doesn't mean you're not going to see hurricane conditions. You're definitely going to see hurricane conditions.
So just waiting on that recon update, of course. That should be coming out anytime soon. We should get a better grip on just the craziness of Ida, of course.
That should be coming out any minute, any second now. It should be pretty soon.
Yeah, I've held back the last 45 minutes, really, back now, but was up getting the bottom bar updated, of course. So that information is now up to date with the latest 9Z information. But of course I've also been, staying back because I've been trying to, regain talking if I can, because I've been talking so much the last several hours now, so yeah, I'm back. I'll be contributing more in terms of discussion and all and hosting duties, but yet needless to say, Ida has continued to surprise the entire team, of course, with its very rapid intensification, and doesn't seem it's stopping at all right now.
Yep.
The recon website has crashed for me
Oh, that's
because
fun.
so many people are looking at it.
Maybe.
So,
Tropical Tidbits does have it doesn't say eyewall, but based on the location of the drop sonde, that is an eyewall drop sonde. So I'm going to throw that into the live output.
oh yeah, that's our world drop son. So they found 120 knot winds just above the surface.
So the National Hurricane Center was right to call that upgrade then.
Pressure down in the eye wall, probably in the radius of maximum winds to at least 952 millibars.
52, yep.
Just wanted to say something really quickly. So, one of the more southerly areas in Louisiana, very on that peninsula, very, very close to the storm's CDO, that core that is slowly moving across shore, recorded as has been stated to be that will be experiencing about 30-mile-per-hour winds at this point, and that is up from.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we have the update from the recon plane, and it doesn't. So we have SFMR up to 123 knots, and it should update the actual flight level wind at any time. And we also have extrapolated pressures down to 947 millibars, 123 knot flight level, 123 knot SFMR. We're just waiting to see these flight level winds. Those update a little bit later.
Right. So the more southerly areas in Louisiana, like let's see, it's called Boothville, Venice, Louisiana, is reported to be experiencing approximately 30-mile-per-hour winds. That was 30 minutes ago, so those winds will have gone up near to tropical depression force very, very soon, which means that the tropical storms, the force wind field is going to be impacting land very, very
Well, I
soon.
mean, 30 miles an hour is tropical depression force.
Right. So if you're in Louisiana right now, those tropical storm force winds will be impacting within the next few hours. Not that it's an surprise to any of us, but that is about to occur. So just be prepared if you are outside of your shelters or wherever you are currently stationed that it is coming and it is about to happen very, very soon.
So we have 134 knot flight level wind and 123 knot SFMR. Both of those support an intensity of 140 miles an hour, which is what the NHC has been going with. And would be pretty interesting to see what the drop zone finds if we get any indication of how fast the storm is deepening, which would be helpful to see what the likely landfall intensity would be.
Okay, so this is a little weird. 3 drop zones in the same spot?
What now? Well, as we wait to figure out what's going on with that, ourselves recon apparently supports 140 miles an hour, which goes in line with the National Hurricane Center's upgrade to 140 miles an hour and a pressure of 946 millibars that we saw with the 5 a.m. Eastern Advisory, 4 a.m. Central Time Advisory. Of course, the National Hurricane Center has resorted to doing updates by the hour, of course, using the lovely power of update statements, so we will see what goes on with that. But yeah, needless to say, it's getting closer to being a mid-range category 4 at this point, and we are still about 10, maybe a little bit less hours away from landfall.
Yep, absolutely. I posted all 3 of the drop zones into the live output. So the third one wasn't it said unknown, but we said eyewall for Noah did. The drop zone number 4, that's the official southeast eyewall drop zone, and that shows the 947 splash millibar pressure. And then there was something else that I don't even know what that is for, but that's cursed, honestly. In my opinion, that looks a bit broken. We're gonna wait on the eye drops on. That usually takes a little longer, but yeah, as you were saying, 134 flight level to 116 SFMR. Before that, though, was 127 flight level with 123 SFMRs. That's what it's called. Excuse me. It's 5:30 in the morning.
Seems we lost you there.
Yeah, I am on push to talk. I let go of it to do some math. So about 123 is about 141 miles an hour. So that does. We do have recon evidence of the 140, which is what the NHC went with. So the 5 a.m. advisory, that is verified by recon data. As long as we get the eye, now we wait on the pressure. We wait and see what the pressure should be.
And of course, all the information that you need to know on the basic side of things can be found at the bottom of your screen. The intensities of all active systems around the world right now, as well as the watches and warnings for both Ida and Nora. That is pretty much the bottom bar in summary. It's a 2-minute loop, so if you miss something, you can always come back to it in 2 minutes when it loops again. But yep, I've been trying to keep that updated. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit difficult in terms of things because you see there was that whole category 2 to 4 upgrade, so having to change the icon and all that stuff wasn't exactly the most fun thing in the world. But here we are. It looks like we're not jumping any more categories, thankfully, because the next category at this point is 5, and we definitely don't want this to reach that intensity, considering the fact that we haven't had a category 4 officially now since 2019. We broke that streak in 2020 after IOTA got downgraded back down to a Cat 4. And the last thing we need is another Cat 5, especially one that is a US landfall, and especially so close to New Orleans.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep, here we are. Technically, I know there was some people who were wondering what was going on, because technically I was, of course, supposed to end my shift here an hour and a half ago. I did say that I would be wrapping up, and Nathan would be taking over at 4Z, and now here we are at, well, or at 8Z, and now here we are at 9:38Z, and Nathan's been having some technical difficulties, but here I am pulling an all-nighter, trying to keep you guys in the know, because of course someone's gotta stay on board to share the information that needs to be shared. So that's basically what we've been focused on doing the last few hours here. Definitely late for me and Jonesy at this point, considering the fact that we're the 2 Americans here in the call still. We've been joined by some of the Europeans and of course people in China, Hong Kong, all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty much the only ones here.
Hey, no.
Fun fact:
We do have
Houma,
Gabriel in
Louisiana.
Texas, and we do
yeah.
have Z. I believe is also stateside, but I'm not sure. But go ahead, Z.
Fun fact: Houma, Louisiana's elevation is 10 feet.
Where is this in Louisiana?
South Central Louisiana. I'll show you here. Or to load. It is southwest of New Orleans.
Well, that was you zooming in on Toronto, Ontario.
But it is 5:45 in the morning, and I got like an hour's sleep. So
That's true. I don't blame you.
Houma is right here.
Yep, and they're in the 12 to 16 foot storm surge. So if they are 10 feet above sea level, then we're talking about they're definitely going to receive a surge. 12 to 16 foot storm surge is forecasted for Homa. I've been calling it Huma all night, but people in the chat have been telling me Homa. Again, I'm from the Northeast, so I don't really know much about Louisiana towns. I apologize.
So it's Houma, the U.S. silent.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Well, looks like we got Nathan back here. Looks like things have recovered on your end, it seems.
Well, here's hoping. Unfortunately, the best will in the world can sometimes be defeated by technical issues. Shall we see if we can try it then?
Yep, just let me know when you got everything all squared right
All
and ready,
right.
and I'll...
We're gonna switch just now and see if this all works. As I was starting to say last time, until we found out that it didn't work, we've got to get through this little unprofessional moment whilst we switch up platforms. But here we are, I think. Looks like it's working at my end. So that is a small victory today.
Alright, I'll test things on my end and stop it and see if that works.
Nearly 2 hours. Quite a monumental feat considering the time of night it's been over there. And of course, a lot of people still tuned in, probably struggling to sleep and struggling to... maybe struggling to think at times when we watch this hurricane barreling towards the coast of Louisiana. Looks like it's moving in a pretty much straight line in the last few hours northwestwards, and it looks to me at least that it's headed for potentially a landfall close to Grand Isle. So that's something that we're pretty concerned about. And there is a camera still there, and probably several from what I hear from Joey, but I had a camera earlier from Grand Isle as well. Of course, it's still nighttime over there right now, but you can see how it looks here. You can just about get a shot. You can see the water starting to come in, the trees in the foreground. Hard to gauge compared to yesterday's footage, but it doesn't look like there's been much in the way of surge just yet, or maybe just starting to creep in. Hard to tell with those waves and obviously the darkness, but it will be starting to get light over there fairly soon.
The real question will be, how high off the ground is this camera, and will it be
taller than those palm trees, so it must be a good... it must be mounted on the top of a house or something, or the side of a house. Probably two stories high.
This area is expected to get, is forecasted in the 12 to 16 foot storm surge, which I did mention at the top of this hour, especially when the advisory came out and when the graphic was shown. So, as Devin was saying earlier, and I agree with him, I would not rule out 20 feet of storm surge. We're just waiting and seeing what we have on recon to see what happens. It's good to see that the handover was successful. So
Don't jinx it. We've had so many issues this morning. It could just go away again. Let's
That
hope
is
not.
true.
Whole reason I'm
That is
staying here to the
true.
top of the hour.
Yeah, I'm gonna be here at least through the top of the hour. I'll probably be here a little longer as I'm working on excessive rainfall outlooks. But as of right now, we have Nathan up. Xavier's been hosting for the last
5 hours.
since midnight. Yeah. I kind of went into unofficial hosting when he went and was updating the bar and talking much. But now we have Nathan. So Xavier's been your host since midnight. My name is Jonesy, and you just saw my name come up there. Ryan Jones for the Category 3 Ultimate fans. Nathan, take it away.
Jonesy, you're so tired, I can tell. Joey is also showing us another webcam from that area.
Yeah, this is a bridge which is slightly it goes over the water, as you can see. Conditions will begin to deteriorate in this area. This is in Grand Isle. Or close to Grand Isle.
It's the road to Grand Isle.
Yeah, road to Grand Isle, I guess you could put it. There's a sort of cluster of webcams in this area, so as Ida moves in, we'll be showing quite a bit here. Not much you can see, but it will definitely, you will be able to see a bit more once the sun rises.
Mesoscale floater imagery showing 1 minute imagery of the storm's progress, and crikey, it soon got to that time where the edge of the eye wall is starting to reach the very edges of the Louisiana coast near the mouth of the Mississippi River, basically there. So it can't be that far away from landfall in terms of mileage. Let me just try and get a little distance for you. Currently it would appear to be around 47 miles from the closest point of land. Now that's not where the landfall is going to be, because that's that little bit there that juts out in Louisiana, and I'm trying to get see if there's a name for that, a little point there. Pilot Station East apparently is the thing that's on the end of it. So that's 47 miles from the center of the storm, and then you've got Port Fourchon, which is 81 miles, Grand Isle 79 miles. Those two areas look like they're going to get the eye of this storm at this rate if it continues that northwestward motion. Then of course we've got we know it's inevitable that at some point it's going to slow down a little bit more and then turn north. So that's going to happen at some point. And then you've still got the possibility that the eye moves directly over New Orleans, because that is north-northwest by 125 miles. At this juncture, the storm at 140 miles per hour. They're expecting a 145 mile an hour peak. And personally, I can't see much more than slight strengthening at this point, because it just seems that time is really running out, and we know that it's probably exited that massive warm pool of ocean heat content that we were talking about all yesterday. Any thoughts from the team on that? Do you think it could go further, though?
Ethan made
Go
the
ahead.
comment earlier, and we did forecast slightly higher 150 miles an hour, mainly because of the fact that this is so rapidly intensifying. National Hurricane Center actually initially said that intensification would probably halt because of possible hour replacement cycles. But in recent advisories, they've been really hammering home that rather than that being the case, it's going to be intensifying all the way up to landfall instead now. So that situation where we could have been looking at, strengthening, stopping, and then halting before landfall doesn't appear to be the case anymore. While it's going to be exiting at the warm eddy, of course, that it's been in for the last several hours, it's going to be entering hotter sea surface temperatures in general. It's been in about 30, 31, but now it's going to be entering 31 to 32. So that's still going to be definitely beneficial for Ida still.
Yep, let's see if we can have a look at what the scene is in New Orleans right now. We had it just a moment ago. Let's see if we can get it again. That's the current view there. Obviously wet on the ground. Doesn't look like it's actively raining there, although there are bands that are in the area. Looks like it's actually in between bands right now. It looks very still and calm there at the moment. In the early hours in New Orleans. Taking a look back, there's that webcam once again, and taking a look at the radar imagery now on our view. You can see everything that's going on, and really, really impressive on the radar imagery.
I got live cam as well.
And who was that, sorry? Oh, that's C. Yep, that's the same one that we have actually. So that's what we've been showing. And Isaac, you're also showing us stuff, latest satellite on your end. That's infrared as it continues to close in. Trying to get a sense of how fast it's moving. Obviously, I've not been watching for that long. When do we think the landfall is going to occur?
Well, based on your, as we're coming up on the top of this hour, I know at the end of top of this past hour we were saying 7 to 8. As we come up on the top of this hour, that would make it about 6 to 7. The numbers you gave us were giving me for about Grand Isle and all that. That would make it, if it keeps the wind at 15 miles an hour, that would put it a little around 5.5. So I think the general ballpark of landfall is anywhere from 5.5 to 7 hours.
Oh, I've got to interrupt for an update. 145 miles per hour is what the National Hurricane Center are going with their latest update at 5 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And a pressure of 946. Reports from a NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that maximum sustained winds have increased to 145 miles per hour. A NOAA Seaman station at Southwest Pass, Louisiana, recently reported a sustained wind of 60 and a gust to 74. Extremely dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Ida expected to make landfall in southeastern Louisiana later today. Thoughts from the team?
Well, unfortunately, it's what we were expecting to see, considering the fact that, of course, intensification was still seeming likely, and you said it would only slightly strengthen more, and here we are now, it's at 145. What do you think now, Nathan?
Well, that's... yeah, I think it could get... I mean, what I mean to say is I don't think it's going to get to Category 5 with the little time that it's got. But I do think it's quite clear that it's going to rival Laura in intensity for landfall.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Laura's actually tied with the Last Island one of 1856 as well, so, I mean, it's going to probably tie those two as again. But the thing is, if you look at the two locations of where those two hurricanes may landfall, they weren't the location that Ida will be making landfall, so...
I know. It's going to
do that much more worse.
Absolutely, that's for sure.
So, going back about that landfall time, if this storm should be making landfall in the next 5 to 6 hours. If it continues its current pace, probably closer to 5 hours. If it slows down just a little bit like we think it might, that may be just a little bit closer to 6 hours, which is still a lot of time. And as we just established, I don't think there's very much I don't think we were expecting much else except for the fact that this storm is going to be intensifying all the way up until landfall. Whether these little numbers here or there, this is not going to be very good.
We're just trying to work our way through this storm as it continues its approach, and I'm trying to work through some more little issues we're having here by the looks of things. the storm continuing on its approach to land, as we mentioned earlier, 80 miles from landfall in Grand Isle if it keeps up that trajectory. There's a sinking feeling that you get sometimes when I lose my mouse on the screen. That happened just a moment ago. I didn't know where anything was, and I thought this whole thing was shutting down. But no, we're still alive, and that storm, really, really impressive on radar, and increasingly so with those bands that are moving through.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems to be clearing. The overall eye temperature has definitely warmed a little bit in those latest frames. There's that little big old patch of cloud tops in the southern eye wall that's slowly beginning to detach from the main eye. It's becoming more circular. It's pretty much that sinking feeling that Nathan was just talking about. It's as the storm just gets closer and closer to landfall, you get that anxious feeling, and you can't help but feel concerned about the residents who are currently still in Louisiana right now.
I don't know if this has been mentioned yet, but cyclone analysts here at 413 have released a new fix on Hurricane Ida and have upgraded it to 125 knots, 946 millibars.
And that's the recon update.
That
so
is
that matches with
Yep.
the NHC.
Yep, so that matches up with the Hurricane Center. 145 miles per hour.
Yep.
At this juncture, we start to run out of things to say. But, of course, our coverage will continue, as it has done throughout this whole experience so far. Not a pleasant one. But here we go nonetheless. We're going to take a break now. We're going to go away for a few minutes, gather our thoughts, and then we'll resume coverage with more on Hurricane Ida. This is where it's going to get pretty bad. And hopefully everyone's done everything they need to do ahead of the storm in terms of preparations. We'll take more questions after this as well. Comments and questions and observations on the ground if it's safe to do so, if you are anywhere near the storm. We'll be back in a few moments. Guess what, Joey? I've got the old music back. And that was heard on air. Joey's really happy about that. Live coverage will continue in a moment.